Hello, hi everyone, and welcome to STEM Careers in the Spotlight with F4S, which we are running today to celebrate British Science Week and International Women's Day. Thank you all for being with us. Our guest speakers joining us today will be telling their career stories and sharing experiences, and then we'll be answering your questions as well. My name is Neelam, and I'll be hosting the session today, and we hope to support you all to make informed decisions about your future career paths, and we'll be exploring careers in STEM with a particular focus in this session on arts, creativity, and combining all of those in this session today. So to the audience at home, your video and audio is turned off for safeguarding purposes, but you can still interact with us using the chat function. You can see some questions as well in the chat box right there. So please do complete those. They really do help us to understand how we're getting on and what you'd like to see perhaps in the future as well. We're recording the session and it will be featured on the F4S platform and a YouTube channel as well. So sit back and enjoy. So first of all, a big thank you to our guest speakers today for joining us, for agreeing to share your story, for giving up your time. I know everyone's really busy. And I'll quickly introduce the both of you and then we'll go straight into your stories. So we have today Emilia B, who is the Engagement and Change Manager at Netapota Group. And we also have Naomi McGregor, the founder of MoveTru, a TEDx speaker and a dance instructor as well. So that's really cool. Thank you to the both of you. So we'll go straight over to Naomi. Naomi, could you please tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got to where you are today and, everything in between and, why is creativity and art so important? How does it link with STEM? Yeah, lots there for you to get started with.
Lots to talk about. So good morning everyone, and I am Naomi McGregor and a recent graduate from Queen's University, Belfast in Northern Ireland. And in university I studied for product design engineering, and which is very similar to mechanical and very traditional engineering, except we get a little bit more of a focus onto developing designing products that we'll use in real life. So for myself, I had a background in ballet and I actually always taught ballet. I started dancing at 4 years old. I started teaching at 13. And then at 14, I actually injured myself. So my injury took 3 years to diagnose, which was quite a long and painful time. So I then put forward an idea for my final year at university to help reduce that injury time. So when I was doing that, I was studying to see how ballet connected to other sports, connecting to rugby, American football. So I was looking across all different sports and looking at the actual engineering of our bodies, which was really exciting. And it's a field that's really going forward, which is really interesting and still quite new. And then this project actually became my business. So I founded MoveTru in July, and I aim to reduce rehabilitation time or injury time by 27%. And it's really exciting because it came from my passion, which was ballet. So I think it's amazing what we can do when we put our passion into the skills that we're good at as well. So growing up, I knew I really liked maths and didn't know how that would link into engineering or into STEM. So whenever I actually got to connect my love of ballet into STEM, it was a very exciting journey that I've started to do. And I've been able to combine that and speak to ballet dancers across the world, football players across the world, and so many sports people. So it's really interesting to see how our body can be affected. And that's really going into this area of understanding if our movement, the forces that we're putting on our body, how does that affect us now? And how will that affect us when we're older? And how can we help our grandparents? And how do we make sure that our grandparents' life is comfortable and that they're not sore? So it's a pretty cool area to be in and to be able to allow my art background into STEM.
Amazing. Wow, that sounds fascinating. Could you tell us a little bit more about MoveTru then? So obviously you know it developed from your own personal experiences, which I think isn't uncommon. I think a lot of the time it's something that is quite personal. You're quite passionate about it. How did it develop from an idea to what it is today?
I think it's really interesting that a lot of my friends that have started their business, all of their passions was what made the business happen. So I have a few friends that horse ride, so they've created science products for their horses. So it's really cool going into something that you enjoy. And for MoveTru, it's some clothing that we get to wear, and then it'll go into your phone. So your phone will actually be able to talk to you and tell you how to move. So it's like having a coach or a trainer with you at all times. So it's like having your own personal robot with you almost that's telling you, and it's the same way as similar to Alexa, that in our house we can say, what's the weather like today? I can turn around and figure out how am I performing. So whenever I play football, am I kicking the ball right? And whenever I'm doing ballet, how high can I lift my leg? So it's really cool to have a little personal assistant.
So it's essentially an app, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it'll be an app on your phone, which is there's so many people going into the area of apps, and I think there's a lot of potential that by doing STEM, we'll be able to see what happens within our smartphones and being able to do a lot more in the future with it.
Brilliant. And what is a day in the life of what you do? What's a typical day like for you?
So my day, I feel like mine's very similar to a lot of people's at the minute because right now we're at home for now, which is okay for now. So my normal day at the minute is I get to work at a desk, but the perk of my job is I can work from anywhere in the world. So I can go to a cafe whenever it opens, or I could be able to go on holiday and sit with my laptop and be able to talk to people and do my work, which is really exciting to be able to just do it from anywhere instead of thinking that I have to be in one specific location. But I've had a few different workplaces. I've worked in manufacturing of food, and I've worked in analyzing cars and like cars that are fully autonomous. So all of those for my day, it always kind of starts the same, that I'll have a meeting with my team because it's so important to speak to other people and to make sure that what you're discussing and what you think you're going to do is going to be right. So I do a lot of talking to my team. I'll always start my day that way. And then I'll continue to spend my day. I could be, every day looks different in engineering, which is what I really love. That I could be either I could code, so I could be coding the technology, or I could be using sensor technology and doing little experiments, or there's so many other things that I could be speaking to professional athletes over Zoom at the minute. And it's really nice to just be able to have so much variety. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've noticed with any career in STEM is that there's a lot of variety within the day. So they all look very different. I, at the minute, spend my day at home with my laptop, and then always try to find a way to do some physical activity as well. Whether that's at lunchtime, I get up and do a dance, or just something to kind of just keep enjoying myself whilst doing it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Naomi. That's been really insightful. I've got loads more questions, but we'll pause for the moment. So
Okay.
to the audience at home, do ask your questions. I'm sure there's loads that you want to know from Naomi. We'll move over to Emilia for the moment. So Emilia, as I mentioned, I've actually had the privilege of interviewing Emilia before, and there seems to be quite a lot of similarities in the work that both Naomi and Emilia do. So Emilia, would you like to share your story next? So same questions. How did you start off and how did you get to where you are today? What do you actually do?
Hello, Neelam, and good afternoon, everyone, and happy International Women's Day. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. So my name is Emilia Bayer, and I work at Yoox Net-a-Porter Group. In fact, I'm wrapping up my career at Yoox Net-a-Porter Group and moving into a completely new industry soon. So it's a very exciting chapter of my life. Right now, I work on solving complex problems for the business and supporting the leadership in implementing accessible solutions that can help improve our processes, but also improve our partnerships with other organizations outside of Yoox Net-a-Porter Group. So in terms of my actual journey, I haven't always worked in tech side of things. I come from a fashion background, but before I got to fashion, I actually started my degree in chemistry. So I've had a very unusual journey. And I guess like one thing I want to share with everyone today, it's very exciting to try different things before you really find out what you want to do in life. And I come from a background of scientists. So my parents are scientists, my grandparents are scientists, and I've always been in this very scientific world surrounded by people who loved science. So math and chemistry were my first choice. And I guess that what dictated my first choice of university. But then after a year of studying chemistry, I realized there are so many things I want to try outside of this bubble. And my mother said, why don't you take a gap year and do something completely different? So I signed up to do a foundation course in fashion art. And I guess I stuck with it. So I completed my master's in fashion design. And I also realized there were a lot of similarities between science and creative fields that people don't necessarily think of. So I've realized like a lot of people think either you're very technical and you're very scientific, or you're very creative, and they're mutually exclusive, which personally I felt wasn't quite the case for me. So I've always continued to combine the two. And even when I decided to specialize in knitwear in my master's, I realized like knitwear is purely based on math. So although it looks very complex and creative, it's purely math based. So you work with grids and you have to design according to those limitations that potentially science imposes. So after graduating from my master's degree in knitwear, I decided to move on to fashion design and work as a fashion designer. And I continued on doing so for a few years until I was invited to join a cohort at the Royal College of Art and to work on inclusive design. So that opened up my mind to a world of possibilities, because instead of creating outfits or garments or items of clothing that were to be sold to people in stores, you were now designing products that were solving people's problems. So if you're a wheelchair, how would you navigate around an airport? A wheelchair user, how would you navigate around the airport? Or if you had mobility issues or other disorders like visual impairment, how would you navigate a website? So applying design principles with the technical background that I had in a way to solve real problems in the real world was really inspiring, and it opened up my mind to so many other things. And upon leaving, I decided to specialize more in inclusive design and set up my own company and learn more about business to run my own company. So I'll spare you all the details of my whole entire journey, but eventually I ended up moving into business side of things. And I've been working on the commercial and the business side of things for a long time, rebranding brands and working on their customer experience. And that's been really, really exciting. So I guess I still combine using both parts of my brain, creative and technical. And I would say it's real fun bringing them together and applying them to work. So that's
brilliant. Thank you so much, Emilia. Can I ask, what is the most recent thing that you've designed then?
I haven't actually designed anything physical for the past couple of years. I've been working on business propositions, so designing client journeys, designing how things look, designing how programs look like, actually designing the programs themselves. So in a way, you're still applying similar mindset and similar skills. But from designing a physical product, you're now designing a virtual product, or you're designing a whole program or an experience.
Right.
So you're still applying, it's just changing the context. You're moving something from physical into digital.
Brilliant. Amazing. And what is the best thing about your job at Netapota?
I would say it's the people and the ability to work on so many different projects and really stretch yourself. But I guess like it's also about, how you approach a job as well. You can get a job and you can get a job description, you can go from A to Z, or you can try to add a bit of creativity and excitement to your own role to make it truly your own.
Brilliant. And can I ask also, you said you come from a family of sort of scientists, you've been raised in a very scientific, dynamic and sort of background. How did your family take it then if that you wanted to do something slightly different and work in fashion? Was it encouraged? Was it were you supported? And the reason I ask this question is because I'm a former teacher myself, and I know that a lot of my students actually did say, Miss, my parents aren't really as supportive as I'd want them to be, that I want to, work in drama or, so there's still sometimes this friction involved. So what would you say to a young person watching who is really passionate about the creative industry, who wants to pursue something, but perhaps needs that little bit of push, that little bit of encouragement?
I'm very lucky because my whole family has always been very supportive of all of my mad ideas. But I think it's just one of those things. My parents always told me that they want me to be happy, and it doesn't matter what I do as long as I enjoy doing it. And I understand it's not the same for everyone. And I have a lot of friends who work in creative industries whose parents weren't necessarily supportive. But I think at the end of the day, what you need to realize, what you're going to do next after your school doesn't have to define your whole life. I took a year out I left chemistry to try to do something creative. I really enjoyed it. I stayed in the creative industry for, I worked in design for around 8 years. And I progressively moved into business. And now I'm moving, after Yoox Net-a-Porter group, I'm going to move into yet a completely different industry. So I think we live at the day and age where you can continuously reinvent yourself, and what you're going to study next doesn't have to define the rest of your life. I guess like if people don't understand your choice now, you have to realize that you're the one who's going to live with your choice, not your parents, not your friends, not your auntie, and not your teachers for sure. And I think one thing my mom has always told me, you're not studying for your teachers, you're not studying for your grades, you're studying for yourself. And I think that's been always the biggest empowerment, because I didn't obsess over grades. I obsessed about the quality of the knowledge I was gaining. And I knew that I was studying for myself, not to pass exams.
That's really, really good advice. So I'd like to ask you a question about skills and abilities, and I'll bring in Naomi as well. So Emilia, we'll start off with you. So have you ever doubted your abilities in maybe a given subject, and how did you overcome those doubts and those challenges? How did you work to improve that discipline?
Again, I will credit my mom for giving me the confidence, and she's always been highly, like, super empowering. And she's always said to me, all it takes is trying. If you try and you realize it's not yours, you can always leave it. So I guess like I've never had the fear of unknown or fear of failure, because for me everything was approached. My approach is always with curiosity. I can either try and discover that I won't enjoy it, or I can try and discover I do enjoy it. And I guess like it's our self-limiting beliefs that hold us back from trying. And I guess like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And if it happens, so what? It doesn't get to define you. It doesn't get to define the rest of your life. You will just find out how not to do things. So I guess for me, the answer is probably no. I can't remember a situation. I guess like one of the things for me was I studied piano for 8 years, and each time I had an exam every end of year, I was just panicking. I didn't want to go on stage because I had a very, very domineering teacher, and I didn't want to hear her feedback. So afterwards, but I guess like that was the only time in my whole life. But other than that, and then I realized that it's not about the teacher, I'm studying for myself, So
Yeah, I fully understand that. And Naomi, how about you? You must have had some doubts about, MoveTru. Did you have any doubts? How did you overcome those sort of worries?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been quite fortunate. Similar to Emilia, that my mom was so understanding for everything that I kind of was like, I might try this. Because especially for me, I came from an all-girls school and I was doing ballet, I was teaching ballet. So engineering was very much not expected as a degree. And it was definitely a last minute change because I actually had enrolled to a university to study business. So I completely changed. The day that I was meant to sign and agree to go, and I said to my mom, I think I've made a mistake. And she was like, okay, that's okay, we can change. She was so good. And then for me going for my business, I had a really good job lined up, and I I had that sitting there, or I could take this risk and I could start my business. And my dad thought, well, take the job, take the sensible job. But I was fortunate enough to get a grant from the government to cover my salary for 12 months. And my mum owns her own business and said, no one will ever pay you again to start your own business and just have that comfort blanket for 12 months. So just do it. See what happens. If it doesn't succeed, you'll learn. And that's always the way that my parents have kind of approached it with me, that it's okay to not know what the end goal is. And for me, whenever I was doing engineering, I didn't know what type of engineering I wanted to be at the end, but I still took that opportunity to go, okay, I'll see what happens with the engineering until that point. And then by mistake, my business happened. And when I was teaching ballet, I didn't have an end goal of being a ballet teacher, but by mistake, my business came from ballet. So I was really just raised to, you didn't have to know fully what you wanted to do as long as you were doing something for good. So if you were doing something that you enjoyed and benefited you long term, then it's always these experiences that we come from. And yeah, I was very nervous going from an all-girls school into engineering, and I had a lot of doubts, more so about going to engineering. I had doubts than about my business. And I wasn't promoted it in school. So like my biggest thing is now, what's the biggest risk that could happen is that you change. You change your plans and try again. So I've really learned that, and I've been fortunate that I've had my parents to back me to allow that time to explore and figure it out.
Yeah, brilliant. And as Emilia says, it's always good to reinvent yourself, and why not? So again, lots of similarities and really, really great sort of joint advice here. Now, it's really important, role models are really important. Obviously, it's International Women's Day. Some young people watching may not feel like they have a professional role model in their lives, for example. What can someone do if they feel like they don't have that inspiration, where it's challenging times right now with the whole pandemic and working from home and all of that, and obviously schools are now reopened and morale might be this and that, and what could you say to young people watching about confidence building, resilience building as well? Any tips? Naomi, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I really relate to this one because I struggled to find a role model that I related to. And my biggest thing of becoming a STEM ambassador was because I wanted to allow the ability to find that relation with somebody. And for me, I didn't know any young females that did ballet and did engineering. So I wanted to use my ability to do that, which is why I did a TEDx talk about ballet and engineering. Like, this is why I feel like finding somebody as a role model can really help, because I think that's what it would have helped me. And with Instagram and Facebook and social media and YouTube, we've allowed this like ability to find so many more role models, so much more accessible. So I think it's having that conversation with your parents about, I'm kind of interested in this area, and then having a look together to see if you can find somebody that is there, because we have so much accessibility to social media now that I think it's a major advantage to find somebody that you can relate to and figure out if you want to try that area, and there's lots of ways to try experiments. There's ways to do art tutorials online. There's ways to do engineering tutorials. So I think YouTube is the biggest asset I think we have at the minute, to really just give ourselves that opportunity to try and everything.
Brilliant, amazing. Emilia, how about you? Any tips about confidence building?
Yeah, I think like again not to replicate what Naomi has already said, but like definitely I think we live in an ever-connected world, and there are so many opportunities to connect with people, to follow them, to learn from their experiences. But I guess like again, for me, I used to read a lot, and there are a lot of people that have inspired me, including Gabrielle Chanel. And it's just reading their biographies, understanding what their life looked like, and understanding how I could apply some of their learnings in my journey.
That's a really good tip, actually, like reading biographies of people that have a similar potential, like a similar journey or a similar passion. Really good. And, you know, again, Naomi, you've talked about YouTube and social media and things, and often we look at the negative side of the darker side of social media, but flip the coin, actually, you can be really inspired. And I think that's really, really wonderful.
Yeah, can I just add one thing? Just really quick. I know we're out of time soon.
No,
I was working with a charity a couple of years ago, and this is a story that always gives me goosebumps. I was speaking with one of the boys, and he grew up with a mother who had to work several jobs to make ends meet, and he didn't have a father. And he became, a very successful lawyer. And I wanted to find out what made him who he became. And he said, I didn't have a father. I grew up at a time where the internet wasn't what it is today. And basically what he ended up doing, he was reading books, and every time he found a positive male image that he aspired to be like, he in his head, he pieced all of those characters and created his own father figure. And to me, that was really powerful. And every time I think about him, it always gives me goosebumps. So that person, that child, that young man, he created his own father based on all these characters and books that he was reading. And I think that is powerful, us being able to create our own role models and not necessarily having one person as a figure.
Yeah.
Really good.
I do agree with that. I think for mine, my biggest role model was my mum, because she opened her own business, and completely unrelated, but it was it was a business store, but it was the fact of how resilient she was that she became my role model, that we can just try and we'll learn from it. Was the biggest thing.
Absolutely. I think you're completely right. Role models, we are role models, teachers are role models, people on the telly are role models. So absolutely go and find your connections, and it really does help. I definitely would agree with both of you. Thank you so much for sharing such great advice, such great tips there. Yeah, I definitely learned a lot, and I'm feeling inspired myself. So thank you. So to the audience at home, do look out for the recordings. Pass them on to your friends and family as well. We're on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and it will be going on our YouTube channel as well. So yeah, another big thank you. Look out for upcoming events as well that we'll be having, hopefully in April, May, June, right till the end of this academic year. We're always thinking of new things and new ideas and ways to inspire the people watching. So any final advice before we end in another sort of 20 seconds from both of you? Any top tips, any final words? Emilia, go for it.
I guess it's the one that I always leave everyone with. Don't let your failures get to your heart and your success to your head. And at the end of the day, everything is figure outable.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Naomi?
I think my biggest thing is just give it a go. Try it and see if you enjoy it, see if it's you want to try and go forward with it. And if you don't, that's okay. And if it doesn't work and you feel, that's also okay, because you've learned something new about yourself. So my biggest thing is just try.
Just try. I love it. Absolutely fantastic. And teachers, if you would like to book a role model event and invite speakers, then you can do that on our website, foundersforschools.org.uk. We're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time, but thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you soon.